Her family sold her as infertile, but a vampire got her pregnant in 3 days and truly loved her. The wind howled across the jagged cliffs, carrying with it the scent of salt and something darker, something ancient. Alara stood at the edge of the crumbling balcony, staring down at the gray waves that thrashed against the rocks below. Her fingers clutched the railing so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She had always loved the sea, the endless horizon, but today it felt like it mocked her. Her family had made her feel useless for as long as she could remember. Whispers in the hallways, cold glances at gatherings, and hushed conversations when she walked by had convinced her that she was nothing more than a failure. She had been called infertile, broken, and a mistake so many times that she could almost hear the words echo in her bones. And now they had sold her. Sold her like a piece of property to a distant city she had never seen, to a man she had never met. A vampire lord, they had said, a creature of shadow and legend. Fear gripped her heart, but beneath it simmered a small, stubborn flame of defiance. I will survive this, she told herself. I will survive, and I will not break. The carriage that came for her was heavy, black as night, with iron wheels that screeched over the stone path leading from her family's estate. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and smoke, with a faint metallic tang that made her stomach twist. She tried to steady her breathing, to hold herself as a noblewoman should, but her hands trembled and her heart raced like a wild horse. Hours passed in silence. The road wound through forests that seemed to watch her as she traveled, their skeletal branches scratching at the windows. Night fell, bringing with it a dense fog that swallowed the path ahead. Alara pressed her forehead against the cold glass, feeling the chill seep into her bones. She did not know what awaited her, only that it would be a life forever changed, or ended. When the carriage finally stopped, the gates before her were taller than the highest towers she had ever seen, black stone entwined with twisted iron. Lanterns burned along the walls, casting flickering shadows that danced like spirits. The air was heavy, almost alive, and the silence pressed against her ears. She felt small. She felt insignificant. And yet, somewhere deep inside, she felt the faint pull of curiosity. A figure emerged from the shadows before the gates opened, and Alara's breath caught. He was tall, so impossibly tall that he seemed to brush the sky. His hair was black as midnight, falling in soft waves around a pale, sculpted face. His eyes glowed faintly, like embers in a dying fire, and they pierced her as if he could see every secret she had ever buried. "You are Alara," he said, his voice smooth and commanding. It held the weight of centuries, yet carried a softness that made her shiver. "Do not be afraid. You are safe for now." She wanted to ask him why she had been sold, why her family had abandoned her. She wanted to demand answers, to scream, to fight. But when she looked into his eyes, she found herself unable to speak. There was a strange power in him, not just of strength, but of knowledge, of seeing the world in ways she could not. The gates opened, and the carriage rolled inside. The castle rose before her like a mountain of darkness, spires twisting into the fog above. Inside, the halls were grand and silent, lined with tall, arched windows that let in the pale moonlight. The walls were decorated with ancient tapestries, depicting battles and legends that seemed almost alive. Candles flickered in sconces, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the floors. Kale led her to a chamber overlooking the courtyard. The room was sparse but elegant, with high ceilings and a fireplace that glowed even without wood. He gestured for her to sit, and she obeyed, her heart pounding. "You are wondering why your family sent you here," Kale said softly. "And I will not lie, they do not see your worth. But I do, I see what they cannot, the life, the fire, the strength within you." Alara's eyes widened. Why would you care? You don't even know me." "I know more than you think," he said, stepping closer. His presence filled the room, yet there was no threat, only an undeniable magnetism, a pull she could not resist. "I have seen centuries pass, witnessed empires fall, and I have known loneliness deeper than the void. I know when a soul is strong and when it is broken. You, Alara, are both. The words struck her harder than she expected. No one had ever said such things to her. Not her parents, not the women in her family who whispered about her in disdain. Never anyone. She wanted to run, to hide, but she felt rooted to the spot, caught in the gravity of his gaze. I, I don't understand, she whispered. Then let me show you, he said. He did not move closer, yet the air between them thrummed with something electric. The world you know is cruel, and your family, they have made their choice, but here you may find a different path, one that is yours. Alara felt her chest tighten. The words offered hope, but fear gnawed at the edges. What kind of life is this? She wondered. What do they expect from me? That night she tried to sleep, but the bed felt strange, and the shadows in the corners of the room seemed to twist with life. She dreamt of a crimson figure, a shadow with eyes like molten gold, and felt a heartbeat that was not her own. It called to something deep within her, stirring feelings she did not understand. She woke with a start, the room quiet except for the whisper of the wind. When she opened her eyes, Kale was standing at the doorway watching her. He did not speak. He simply observed, his presence filling the room like a tangible thing. Alara's heart raced, a mixture of fear and fascination. She could not look away. You dreamed, he said finally, his voice low. Dreams are not always empty. Some carry truths we are not ready to face. What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling. Kale stepped into the room, slow and deliberate, and the shadows seemed to bend around him. I do not know yet, he admitted, but I will help you discover them if you let me. Alara's mind spun. Let him. How can I trust anyone after what my family did to me? But when she looked at him, she saw no cruelty, no hunger for control, only something waiting, something patient, something that could see her without judgment. I don't know if I can, she whispered. You can, he said softly. You will, in time. Days passed. Each one felt heavy with uncertainty, yet strange moments of connection crept between them. Kale spoke little of himself, but enough to hint at centuries of loss and loneliness. He treated her with a mixture of gentle authority and quiet reverence. And slowly, Alara began to feel a warmth she had not known since childhood, a sense that she mattered, that someone truly cared. She explored the castle, wandering through corridors lined with books and strange artifacts. There were rooms filled with mirrors that reflected more than her image, gardens where plants glowed with faint light, and hallways that seemed endless. Everywhere she looked, there was evidence of a life lived in both shadow and grandeur. Yet, despite the wonder, fear never left her completely. She thought of her family, of the life they had stolen from her, and she felt a bitter ache. But each time she met Kale's eyes, she felt that ache soften, replaced with a tentative hope. On the third night, the dream returned. The crimson figure called to her again, but this time the heartbeat was stronger, more insistent. She awoke to a warmth within her, subtle and unfamiliar, and for the first time in her life she felt a flicker of possibility, a chance that she could have what she had always been told she could not. Kale was there, as always, watching, but tonight his expression was different. There was a shadow of concern, a flicker of emotion that made her heart clench. You feel it, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Alara nodded, unable to speak. She did feel it, something new, something fragile and powerful, a spark of life that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with love and hope. Kale reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. It has begun, he said softly. And you will be more than what they said you could ever be. Alara's chest swelled with a mixture of wonder and fear. The future was unknown, full of shadows and uncertainty. But for the first time, she did not feel powerless. Outside the castle, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the faint hint of danger. Someone, or something, watched the gates, waiting. But inside, in the quiet of the moonlit chamber, a fragile bond had begun, and with it, the promise of a life transformed. Ilara was no longer just a girl labeled infertile. She was the beginning of something new, something powerful, something eternal. And deep in the night, Kale's eyes glowed like embers as he whispered into the darkness, "No one will take her from me." The castle was silent under the pale glow of the moon, its spires reaching like black fingers into the misty sky. Ilara moved through the halls with cautious steps, the weight of uncertainty pressing on her chest. She had not spoken much to Kale since the night she had awakened to the strange warmth within her, the life that seemed to stir for the first time. Yet every glance he gave her carried more meaning than words ever could. Kale appeared without warning, his presence filling the corridor like a living shadow. "Ilara," he said, voice calm yet resonant, "come with me." She followed him through twisting passages that smelled faintly of old stone and roses, the walls lined with glowing lanterns. They entered a room she had not seen before. Tall windows revealed a garden bathed in silver light, mist curling over the ground like a slow-moving river. The air shimmered with magic, soft, luminous, and alive. "This is the Moon Garden," Kale said. "Few are allowed here. It is a place of power, of beginnings. You will learn much here about yourself, about what you carry, and about the life you are bringing into this world." Ilara's heart pounded. "Life," she whispered, touching the small warmth in her belly. Kale knelt beside her, his eyes glowing faintly. "Yes. 3 days ago it began. What I gave you, it has awakened something within you, something I have never seen before in centuries. You are fertile, Ilara, not because the world allows it, but because life chooses you." The words struck her like lightning. For a lifetime she had been told she was broken, useless, unworthy. And now, here in the silver-lit garden, a vampire, a being of power and legend, spoke truth. She was not only alive but capable of creating life. Fear and wonder battled within her. She looked at Kale, who watched her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Why me?" she asked softly. "Why would you care?" Kale's expression softened. "Because I have seen the world without hope. I have seen centuries pass, and I have known loneliness deeper than the void. When I look at you, I see fire, strength, and courage. You have survived what others could not. You are rare, Ilara, and rare things must be cherished." Ilara's throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but the words would not come. She had never been cherished, never been seen. And now, in the stillness of the Moon Garden, she felt the pull of something unfamiliar, something powerful and dangerous: trust. For the next 3 days, Kale remained by her side. He taught her about the blood he shared and the strange life it could awaken. His lessons were gentle but commanding, each one revealing the depth of his power and the care he held for her. They walked under moonlit arches, their hands sometimes brushing, sending sparks of warmth through her. "You are stronger than you know," he said one evening, standing beside a fountain that glowed with silver light. "And the life you carry will be stronger still." Ilara looked down at herself, then back at him. "Stronger? I am just a girl. My family said I am useless, that I cannot have children, that I am nothing." "You are everything," Kale said firmly, "and the world will see it in time. You carry not just a child, but a bond that cannot be broken by fear, cruelty, or lies. You carry hope, and hope cannot be destroyed." The next day, Kale showed her the castle library, where ancient texts whispered of powers and curses long forgotten. He guided her hands over the pages, teaching her how the vampire blood could awaken not just life, but resilience, strength, and hidden abilities within humans. Ilara listened, absorbing each word. For the first time, she felt a purpose beyond survival. At night, they would sit by the fire in the high tower chamber, speaking of dreams and fears. Kale rarely revealed much about himself, yet she glimpsed moments of vulnerability. An immortal who had loved and lost, who had witnessed betrayal and cruelty over centuries, yet still held the capacity to love again. "You trust me," he said one night, his voice barely more than a whisper as he traced a hand along the curve of her cheek. "Do not fear what you feel. It is real. It is life. It is love." Ilara's heart ached. She wanted to trust him, to lean into the warmth he offered, but the past clawed at her memory. My family sold me. They said I was worthless. How can I trust anyone ever again? Cale leaned closer, his gaze softening. You can, because I will not harm you. And I will not abandon you. Not now, not ever. The words wrapped around her like a protective shroud. She wanted to believe them, and in that moment she almost did. Almost. On the third day, the bond they had been forming reached a tipping point. Cale brought her to a secluded wing of the castle, where the walls glimmered with faint, enchanted light. He knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "Alara," he said, voice low, "you carry life now, and that life is part of both of us. I will not let you face this world alone. You are mine to protect, and I am yours to trust." She looked into his eyes, seeing not hunger or command, but something deeper, devotion, respect, and care. Her pulse quickened, a mixture of fear and anticipation coursing through her veins. "You truly care?" she asked, voice trembling. "I do," he said simply. "I care for you, for the child you carry, for the woman you are becoming. This is not a game, Alara. This is life, and I choose to protect it with everything I am." Alara's lips trembled. She wanted to speak, to ask him 1,000 questions, but the words dissolved into the silence between them. Instead, she placed a hand over her belly, feeling the warmth, the stirrings, the undeniable proof of what had begun. That night, she dreamed again. The crimson figure returned, but this time it did not feel frightening. It felt protective, alive, pulsing with the rhythm of the life growing within her. She woke to find Cale watching her as always, his eyes glowing softly in the candlelight. "You feel it," he said. "The life, the bond. It has begun, and it will grow stronger with each passing moment." Alara nodded, unable to speak. She felt the truth of it deep in her chest, deep in her soul. She had been broken by her family, sold as though she were nothing. Yet here in this castle of shadows and light she was alive. She was cherished. She was more than she had ever imagined. For 3 days, Cale remained by her side, guiding, teaching, and protecting. Every moment strengthened the bond between them, not just of life and blood, but of trust and understanding. Alara began to see a future she had never dared to imagine, a future where she was valued, loved, and capable of creating life. But even as their connection deepened, shadows lingered at the edges of the castle. Outside the gates, unseen eyes watched, waiting for a chance to strike. Her family had not forgotten her. They had not forgiven what they considered a betrayal. And in their hearts, anger and greed festered, ready to challenge the fragile new life she was building. Alara knew the danger was real, yet she did not feel fear the way she had before. For the first time, she felt strength. For the first time, she believed in the bond she shared with Cale and the life growing within her. She was no longer powerless. She had survived her past, and she would survive the future. As the moon rose high, casting silver light across the castle, Cale stood beside her, his hand resting gently on hers. "The world is cruel," he said softly, "but together we will face it. Nothing will take you from me, not your family, not their schemes, not even time itself." Alara's heart swelled with a mixture of hope and fear. The journey ahead was uncertain, dangerous, and full of shadows. Yet here, in the quiet of the moon garden, she felt the first true stirrings of love and trust. And deep within, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The life she carried was more than a miracle. It was proof that even in the darkest of nights, hope could rise. And with Cale by her side, she would face whatever came next, stronger than she had ever been. Outside the castle, the mist swirled, carrying whispers of those who would challenge her. But inside, Alara and Cale shared a bond forged in shadow and light, one that neither time nor cruelty could undo. The forbidden bond had begun. And in the stillness of the moonlit garden, Alara felt a quiet, undeniable truth. She was no longer just a girl sold for her supposed weakness. She was the bearer of life, the keeper of hope, and the heart of a love that would defy all darkness. The castle had grown quiet after the first light of dawn. Mist clung to the battlements like silken threads, and the air smelled of damp stone and hidden flowers. Inside, Alara moved carefully through the corridors, her hand resting lightly on her belly. The life within her stirred with subtle, insistent movements, and she could not help but smile, a small, private joy in the midst of growing unease. Kale followed her silently, his tall form like a shadow trailing her every step. Though he spoke little, his presence was a comfort. He had taught her how to feel strength within herself, how to draw power from the life she carried, and how to trust her instincts. Each lesson had built her confidence, turning fear into something more like awareness, a shield she could wield when danger approached. But the shadows outside the castle gates had not faded. Word had reached Kale that her family's anger was not gone. It had grown sharper with every passing day. They had sent an envoy to claim her, claiming her unborn child as their right. The thought made Alara shiver. She had survived cruelty once, but this was a battle she had never imagined. Kale's expression remained calm, but there was a tightness around his eyes that betrayed his concern. "They believe they can take what is ours," he said quietly as they looked over the courtyard. "They do not understand that you are not a child to be bargained with. You are life itself." Alara swallowed. "What if they come? What if I am not strong enough?" Kale reached for her hand, and she felt the warmth of his immortality course through her veins. "You are stronger than you think," he said, "and you do not face them alone. I will protect you with everything I am. But you must also trust yourself, Alara. That is the greatest strength of all." The next days were filled with preparation. Kale guided her through the castle's hidden defenses, secret passages, enchanted mirrors, wards that glowed faintly under his touch. He taught her how to channel the life force growing within her, how to sense danger before it came. Alara listened carefully, absorbing each lesson with determination. She refused to be a victim again. Yet, even as she trained, fear lingered like a shadow at the edges of her mind. She could not forget the life she had been forced to leave behind, the family who had labeled her worthless, the world that had told her she was infertile and weak. Those memories clawed at her heart, threatening to shake the confidence she was building. One night, as silver moonlight spilled across the walls, Kale led her to the moon garden once more. The mist curled around her feet like living fingers, and the air shimmered with an otherworldly glow. "They will come," Kale said softly, his eyes scanning the horizon. "Soon they will arrive, and you will see what they are capable of." Alara's heart pounded. She had expected danger, but hearing it confirmed made it real. She gripped the folds of her dress tightly. I am ready," she said, though her voice trembled. Kale studied her, his expression unreadable. "You are ready because you have to be. But remember this, strength is not only in arms or magic. It is in your will, in your heart, in your love for what you carry." As dawn approached, the first signs of movement appeared beyond the castle walls. Figures cloaked in dark robes moved silently through the mist, their presence unnatural, their intent clear. Alara could feel the tension in the air, a pulse of danger that made her senses sharpen. Kale's hand found hers, grounding her, steadying her. "They underestimate us," Kale murmured, "but that will not save them." The intruders breached the outer grounds with quiet precision, using spells and stealth to approach the castle gates. Kale moved like a shadow, silent and unstoppable, intercepting each threat before it could reach her. Alara followed as best she could, her instincts guiding her, her heart steady despite the fear that threatened to overwhelm her. When the first envoy reached the inner courtyard, they froze. They had expected an unprotected girl, fragile and powerless. Instead, they found a woman standing tall, her hands glowing faintly with the life force she now commanded, and beside her, Kale, a being of shadow and light, guarding her with unwavering devotion. Alara felt a surge of courage. She stepped forward, her voice clear and unwavering. "You have no claim over me," she said, "and you will never touch the life I carry." The leader of the envoy hesitated, taken aback by her strength. "Your family," he began, but Kale's presence silenced him with a glance that was more than warning. It was a promise of power and retribution. The standoff lasted only moments, but in that time, Alara felt a shift within herself. The fear that had plagued her for years, the fear of being worthless, unloved, powerless, began to dissolve. She realized that the life growing inside her, the bond she shared with Kale, was stronger than any cruelty the world could throw at her. The attackers retreated, their spells failing, their illusions breaking against the combined power of Kale and the life force within Alara. Yet, even as the danger passed, Alara knew this was only the beginning. Her family's cruelty had not ended, it had evolved. And the world beyond the castle would not forgive her for surviving. In the aftermath, Kale led her to the highest tower, where they could watch the sunrise together. The first rays of light painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, casting long shadows across the castle walls. "You have done well," Kale said, his voice soft as he placed a hand over her belly. "You have faced fear, danger, and betrayal, and you have not faltered." Alara leaned against him, feeling the steady warmth of his presence. I could not have done it without you," she admitted. "You could," he said, his lips brushing the top of her head. "But I am here, and together we are stronger. Remember that. You are not alone." Days turned into nights, and the bond between them deepened. Kale shared fragments of his past, centuries of loneliness, of watching empires rise and fall, of loving and losing. Alara listened, fascinated and humbled by the depth of his experience. In turn, she shared her own fears, her own losses, and the moments of cruelty that had shaped her. Each story, each confession, drew them closer, weaving their souls together in ways neither had expected. One evening, as they walked through the moon garden, a sudden tremor of magic rippled through the air. The shadows seemed to shift, and a cold wind swept over the garden, carrying a whisper of voices. Alara's heart raced. "What is it?" she asked, clutching Kale's arm. "Trouble," he said, his eyes narrowing. "They are testing us. Your family's reach extends further than you realize, but we are ready. You are ready." Alara took a deep breath. She felt the life inside her, strong and persistent, as though it knew the danger and was preparing to face it alongside her. She realized then that she was no longer just a girl sold as worthless. She was a mother, a protector, a woman capable of standing against cruelty and fear. Kale lifted her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Do not let fear rule you," he said. "Trust in yourself, trust in what we share, and above all, trust in the life within you. It is stronger than any darkness." The night deepened, and the castle seemed to hold its breath. Alara and Kale stood together, two figures against the shadows, bound by trust, love, and the promise of a life that had begun in defiance of cruelty. Outside, the first stirrings of their enemies' plans whispered through the mist, a reminder that the world was not yet safe. But inside, in the quiet of the moonlit garden, Alara felt an unfamiliar sense of peace. She was no longer powerless. She had strength. She had love. And she had a life growing inside her, a living testament to hope, resilience, and the bond that could not be broken by time or treachery. As the first hints of dawn brushed the sky with light, Kale's hand rested on hers, steady and warm. "Whatever comes next," he said softly, "we will face it together." Alara nodded, her heart swelling with courage. She knew that shadows would come again, that her family and the world beyond would challenge her, but she would not falter. She had survived betrayal once, and she would survive it again. Stronger, braver, and more certain than ever. And in the distance, a shadow moved silently through the mist, watching, waiting. The battle for her life and the life she carried was far from over. The shadows of betrayal had arrived. And deep in her heart, Alara understood. The real fight was only beginning. The castle stood tall against the stormy night sky, black spires clawing at the clouds like fingers of shadow. Rain poured in torrents, drumming against the ancient stone walls, and the wind carried whispers of unseen forces. Alara sat on the edge of her bed, her hands resting over the life that stirred within her. The child she carried had grown strong, and she could feel its presence like a heartbeat all her own. Kale entered the room, tall and silent, his dark cloak trailing behind him. His glowing eyes met hers, full of concern and determination. "They are coming," he said quietly. "Your family will not stop until they try to take you, but tonight we end this." Alara rose, steadying herself despite the storm in her belly. She had trained, learned, and grown over the past days. Fear no longer ruled her. She was ready. "I am ready," she whispered. Kale extended his hand. Then we faced them together. They moved through the halls like shadows themselves, silent but purposeful. Outside, the rain-slicked courtyard reflected the lightning that split the sky, illuminating the shapes moving in the mist, figures sent by her family wielding dark magic, their intentions clear. They wanted control, power, and revenge. They did not understand that Alara was no longer a powerless girl. As the first wave approached, Kale stepped forward, his hands raised. Shadows stretched from the walls, coiling around him like serpents of light and dark, moving with his will. The intruders faltered, sensing the power that radiated from him. Alara stood beside him, her own life force glowing faintly around her, a protective aura that flared in response to the danger. "You will not touch her," Kale said, his voice like thunder echoing through the courtyard. "Not now, not ever." The attackers hesitated, unsure how to proceed. But the leader, a tall figure draped in a cloak as black as midnight, stepped forward. "Your child will be ours," he hissed. "Your power is nothing against the will of your family." Alara's heart pounded, but she did not retreat. She lifted her hands, feeling the life within her respond, flowing outward in a shield of light. "You are wrong," she said firmly. "I am not yours, I am mine, and my life and the life I carry belong to me and to him who protects me." Kale's hand found hers, and together they unleashed a wave of power that knocked the intruders back. Magic and life intertwined, creating a spectacle of light and shadow that illuminated the courtyard. The rain hissed as it touched the glowing aura, and the storm seemed to still for a moment, watching. The battle was intense but brief. Every move Kale made was precise, controlled, yet tempered by the care he had for Alara. She followed his lead, her instincts guided by the bond they shared. The life within her seemed to strengthen with every heartbeat, lending her courage and power beyond what she had imagined. One by one, the attackers fell back, their spells dissipating against the force of Kale and Alara's combined strength. The leader, realizing defeat, tried one final incantation, but Kale intercepted it, his shadowy form moving faster than the eye could follow. The spell shattered, leaving the courtyard silent except for the patter of rain. Alara breathed heavily, her chest rising and falling as the adrenaline ebbed. She looked at Kale, who stood before her, drenched but unyielding, his expression a mixture of relief and pride. "You were incredible," he said, his voice soft now, carrying no command, only awe. I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted, her voice trembling. She reached out, her hand resting on his cheek. "You taught me to be strong. You showed me life is worth fighting for." Kale's eyes softened. "No, Alara, you were always strong. I only helped you see it. The life you carry, the courage you showed tonight, those are yours. You have grown into a woman who cannot be controlled, and no one will ever take that from you." The storm began to clear, the clouds parting to reveal a pale moon that bathed the courtyard in silver light. The intruders had vanished, leaving only the echo of their threat behind. But Alara no longer felt fear. She had faced betrayal, cruelty, and danger, and she had emerged stronger, braver, and alive. Kale took her hand and led her to the highest tower. From there the castle stretched beneath them, its walls gleaming with the soft glow of enchanted wards, its gardens shimmering in the moonlight. "Look," he said, "this is your world now. The past cannot touch you here." Alara gazed out over the expanse, feeling the full weight of her journey. She had been sold, abandoned, told she was worthless. Yet here she was, standing beside a being who cherished her, carrying a life that defied the cruelty of her family. She felt pride, hope, and love, emotions she had never allowed herself before. "I never thought I could feel like this," she admitted softly. "To be wanted, to be strong, to love and be loved." Kale pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "You deserve it, Alara. More than anyone I have ever known, and you will have it always. We will build this life together, no matter what comes." Days passed, and peace settled over the castle. Kale and Alara worked together to heal the wounds left by betrayal. The castle, once shadowed and silent, began to feel alive, its corridors humming with magic, its gardens thriving under the care of those who loved it. Alara's belly swelled with the life inside her, and she learned to draw strength from it, to feel her own power as a force of creation and hope. Kale shared more of himself with her, revealing centuries of loneliness, regret, and moments of joy that he had once believed lost forever. Alara listened, her heart full of empathy and admiration. In turn, she shared her dreams for the future, her hopes for the child she carried, and her desire to break free from the chains of her past. The bond between them grew, not only of love but of trust and partnership. They were equals in every way, bound by the trials they had faced and the life they were creating together. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of gold and crimson, Alara felt the first true movement of her child. She gasped, placing her hand on her belly, tears of joy spilling down her cheeks. Kale knelt beside her, resting a hand over hers, and whispered, "This is our miracle, Alara. We made this life together. Nothing can take it from us now." For a moment they simply sat, listening to the rhythm of life, the sound of the world outside and the beating of their hearts. The past seemed distant, powerless against the present. Yet even in that moment of triumph, Alara sensed something in the distance, a shadow, fleeting but deliberate, watching the castle from beyond the forest. She tightened her grip on Kale's hand. "Kale, someone is out there," she said softly. He followed her gaze, his eyes narrowing, yet his expression held no fear. "It matters little," he said firmly. "Whatever threat comes, we are ready, and as long as we are together, no darkness can touch what we have built." Alara nodded, feeling the strength of his words. She knew the world would always hold shadows, always test the bonds of love and life. But she also knew that she, Kale, and the life growing within her were stronger than any cruelty, stronger than any betrayal. Days turned into weeks. The castle thrived under their care, the gardens blossomed, and the corridors were filled with warmth and laughter. Alara learned to command her own magic, drawing on the bond she shared with Kale and the life within her. She could feel the child's growing power, a combination of human and vampire essence, a spark that promised a future full of potential and hope. One quiet morning, Alara stood in the moon garden, feeling the sunlight warm her face. Kale joined her, placing a protective arm around her waist. "Do you see?" he asked softly. "This is what we fought for. This is what we have earned." Alara smiled, her heart full. "It is more than I ever dreamed," she said. "I am no longer the girl they sold as useless. I am strong, loved, and alive, and soon I will bring a new life into the world, a life of hope, not fear." Kale kissed the top of her head, his voice barely above a whisper. "And I will be here always to protect you, to love you, and to cherish both of you." As the sun rose higher, casting gold across the gardens, Alara felt a sense of peace she had never known. The shadows of her past had been faced, the betrayals overcome, and the life she carried thrived within her. The castle, once a place of darkness, had become a sanctuary of love, strength, and hope. Yet beyond the forest, a distant figure watched silently, a reminder that the world was never truly free of shadow. But Alara did not fear it. She had faced darkness and she had emerged stronger. She had love, life, and a bond that no shadow could undo. And as Kale held her hand, their child stirring gently within her, she knew this was only the beginning of a story that would endure beyond time, beyond fear, and beyond betrayal. Love had triumphed. Life had begun. And together they were unstoppable.